So UFC 306 Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili takes place this weekend for the UFC Bantamweight Championship. And overall, the card looks pretty mid. Now, I already posted a video talking about how I feel about the $16 million investment. So if you want my whole opinion about the card, just go to my channel, check my most recent video. It should be up by now. This probably be posted Wednesday. I'm recording 2 videos this week because I'm on vacation. So yeah, but for this video, I'm going to go through the entire card, break down every single fight on it one by one, give you my prediction of how each fight will go, and yeah, it's a full card prediction video. Hope you guys enjoy it. So let's go ahead and dive right into these predictions. Starting off with the first fight on the card, we do have Chiwiwis versus Aoriqileng, Raul Rosas Jr. If you know who that is, that's just his merch name, I guess. This one I think is pretty easy. Aoriqileng, sorry. I think is pretty susceptible to the ground, right? He's a powerful striker. That's kind of his whole motto. That's his whole style, is he likes to go out there and land big shots. He's not a bad striker, but he's not anything amazing. So the real question when it comes to this fight is, can Aoriqileng stuff Raul Rosas Jr.'s takedowns? And I don't think he will be. Raul Rosas Jr. has this style of just non-stop going for takedowns. He chain wrestles. If it gets iffy on the feet at any moment, even if it's not iffy on the feet, he just is constantly going for takedowns, and his cardio does hold up as well. So he can go 3 rounds of just non-stop grappling, spamming takedowns. Does not matter if he fails them whatsoever, he will still go for takedowns. So maybe I can see Aoriqileng stuffing a few, but it's that second, that third, that fourth takedown that Raul Rosas Jr. goes for. That's where I see it becoming a bit iffy for him. And I also do believe that Aoriqileng, I think his cardio might not be that good in the third rounds. I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but I do have a faint memory of one of his fights where I got into the third round and he didn't look so hot. I'm taking Raul Rosas Jr. I think I'll get this one done. I think at some point he'll have Aoriqileng gassed rather than the second and third round, and I think he will find a submission. So I'm taking Raul Rosas Jr. by second round submission, probably rear naked choke. He probably can get done in the first round as well, but I do think we're going to see Aoriqileng have good preparation for this fight and be able to survive the first round and then come out second round. He's gassing a little bit, getting a bit tired, and then eventually fall into a submission from Raul Rosas Jr. But we move on up the card to Edgar Chairez versus Joshua Van. Now, I have a problem with Joshua Van. It's a problem that he can't even change because it's genetic. He just is too small at flyweight, which is crazy to say, but he just is simply too small because every single other featherweight is like Edgar Chairez, who is 5'7" with 72 inches of reach. All of these other flyweights are cutting a lot of weight where Joshua Van just isn't. So if there was a strawweight division, just go ahead and chop it up, make Joshua Van your champion because he is one of the best strikers at flyweight. However, he just is a bit too small. And when he fought Charles Johnson, which is a fight that he last had a month ago where he got KO'd, it just is, Charles Johnson's just too big, and it was pretty apparent that Joshua Van was a lot smaller than him, and it just didn't matter because he had to find his way on the inside and find a way through the reach of Charles Johnson. And it might be the same thing with Edgar Chairez, and I am very worried about Joshua Van. He again got KO'd a month and 2 weeks ago, and he's turning around to fight Edgar Chairez, who I really don't believe is that good, because Chairez, he pretty much both times made easy work of Daniel Lacerda. He fought him back-to-back. The first time was a draw, which really shouldn't have been a draw. Let's be real here. Lacerda was trying to find a way out of that fight, and it was a premature stoppage. They do the rematch, and it's the same thing how it went the first time. Edgar Chairez is just better than Lacerda, but Lacerda is terrible. I think he didn't have a win in the UFC whatsoever. I think he fought 5 times in the UFC and didn't win a single one. So what I'm trying to say here is that Chairez beating Lacerda doesn't mean anything. Yes, she's better than Lacerda, which is a very, very low bar to go past or go higher than. He still doesn't seem like he's really all that good on the feet. Yes, he's powerful, but he's not really the most technical guy I've ever seen. He's a bit powerful, I would say, and a bit wild. Not wild, but you can tell that he does have a lot of power in that first round. And Joshua Van, even though I do believe he has good striking, I think I'm going to believe in him in this one, honestly. I'm extremely worried for Joshua Van, and I kind of want to lean towards picking Edgar Chairez because of the fact that Joshua Van is small, coming off a KO 1 month ago. It just really does worry me for Joshua Van, but he is 22. We know how he strikes. He has really good body strikes, good Muay Thai. It's his whole background. I do believe that he is a better striker than Chairez and overall a better fighter. And so I will take him to beat Edgar Chairez, but I am very much worried for what holds in the future for Joshua Van. He could go out there and get KO'd again because Chairez is explosive in the first round. But again, Joshua Van, technical, really good, better than Edgar Chairez. I am worried, but I think he'll go out there and just as the fight goes on, land better and better shots and just overall be able to outpoint Chairez in that second and third round, maybe have a tough first round, but then come out, make his adjustments, and land that body shot, land that left hook to the body that he always lands, and go out there and get a decision win over Edgar Chairez. But moving on to the next fight on the card, we have Yazmin Jauregui versus Ketlen Souza. I'm taking Yazmin Jauregui here. Women's MMA, this fight probably won't be anything crazy, but Yazmin Jauregui is 25 years old. She's proven to be good. Her record is pretty good. She lost to Denise Gomez, who, you know, it happens, women's MMA. Some of these women, they just are powerful and they're really good. You probably know what I'm thinking right now, but I'm not going to say it. But Jauregui's good. She's talented, has a good record, 11-1. Ketlen Souza kind of is the Denise Gomez type, if you know what I'm talking about, but I don't really think she's anything too special, nothing too crazy. Jauregui has talent. She's good. I think she gets this one done. I'm not going to really go too crazy on this prediction because I don't really feel like this fight is really too crazy. I mean, honestly, at this point for women's MMA, you could just pick whoever and it might work out. But again, Ketlen Souza, her opponents before she got into the UFC seemed pretty iffy. Like she fought a 9-4 girl, 8-6 girl, 6-3 girl. Fought Karine Silva, which she's a dog. She's really good. She has a future. I think she just lost actually, Karine Silva. No, I lied. She didn't. She's still undefeated in the UFC. So losing to Karine Silva isn't actually a bad loss, but I don't really find her to be anything too special. Where Yazmin Jauregui lost to Denise Gomez. I still think she has a future in women's MMA. I think she still can get this one done. So I'm taking Yazmin Jauregui by decision. I don't think women's MMA gets too many finishes. Honestly, it's a good bet to always bet decision on any women's fight you see. But we move on to our next fight. That is Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bahomondes. Now, this one's going to have a tough one to predict. Actually, a really good fight to have. Should be in the main card over Osbourne and Ronaldo Rodriguez. But Manuel Torres is your typical really powerful guy, really explosive guy. And we haven't really seen him in the UFC go past the first round, I believe, or second round, I believe. Submitted to Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan's pretty decent. He KO'd Nicholas Mata with a crazy elbow. So Manuel Torres is very explosive and has potential to be a star in the future if he can continue to get finishes. Ignacio Bahomondes is a bit different. He's more technical, more reserved, picks his shots, not so wild in the first round, not too explosive. He does have one crazy KO as well. We had a spinning wheel kick against Roosevelt Roberts, who fought on Tough at one point. But Ignacio Bahomondes is good. He's technical. And maybe as this fight goes on, he can beat Manuel Torres. But one thing about Ignacio Bahomondes is that he is pretty hittable. And he will have 2 inches of reach advantage over Torres. But I don't really feel like Bahomondes uses his reach to his advantage too well. That's something that I've noticed about Bahomondes is that he will have a considerate reach advantage over his opponents, but not be able to use that reach too effectively. And when you're fighting Manuel Torres and you're kind of hittable and you're open in the first round, and it's going to take you a second to get into the fight, I am kind of worried for Bahomondes. But I don't think he'll get KO'd. I don't think he'll get put out of there quick by Manuel Torres. And so I think this will be a tough fight for Torres. I think he'll win the first 2 rounds, but in that third round, it might be a bit iffy for him. Maybe he hurts Bahomondes once or twice, and that wins him the round. But in that third round is where I really see him maybe probably gassing because he's putting in so much high effort or high gas tank moves, if that makes any sense. So I think we're going to see him go out in that third round and probably be a little bit gassed. But I don't think Ignacio Bahomondes will have the power to get him out of there. And so we're going to see Manuel Torres win. And based on the first 2 rounds, maybe incorporate some grappling as well. He can grapple. So we might see Manuel Torres grapple in the first 2 rounds, maybe hurt Bahomondes at one point, but in that third round, be a little bit gassed out. And then we're going to see Bahomondes pour it on, but it just will be a little bit too late. And we're going to see Manuel Torres win by decision 29-28 based on the first 2 rounds. But moving on up the card, we have Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. Now, Irene Aldana gave me a pretty stinking impression after she lost to Amanda Nunes, but she came back and she fought Cara Rosa, I believe. Yeah, fought Cara Rosa, had a pretty decent performance there, and she's now back in the win column. Norma Dumont has always been pretty good to me, maybe a bit undersized for women's featherweight or bantamweight, sorry. But how I think this fight's going to play out is that I believe Irene Aldana just really can't handle the grappling, but Norma Dumont doesn't really ever grapple that much. She mainly stays on the feet, mainly strikes, and she's a good striker, but I do think Irene Aldana might be a better striker. This fight is really, really 50-50, and honestly, I think I'll put my eggs in the basket of Irene Aldana. I just think that she's going to be a bit bigger than Norma Dumont, and she has the reach advantage over Norma Dumont. Dumont's good on the feet, but she's not anything too crazy. She beats all the scrubs at women's bantamweight. Like she beat Danielle Wolf, whatever. She was 1-0. Okay. She beat Cara Rosa, whatever. She's an old woman, I believe. She beat Chelsea Chandler. She beat Jermaine Durandamy. Like, I think it takes somebody like Norma Dumont really does well against people who want to grapple against her. And Irene Aldana is not going to do that. She's going to mainly strike with her. And I think her having the reach advantage and Norma Dumont not grappling her, it leans me towards picking Irene Aldana. I think she has crispier striking. She's obviously bigger than Norma Dumont. I'm going to take her to win. She's fought for the belt as well at women's bantamweight, even if that fight was really, really stinky. But I'm taking Irene Aldana by decision. This card might actually be pretty bad. I think I only have one finish I predicted. But moving on, up the card again to the main card of Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne. This one, I don't know why the odds are so close. Rodriguez, I think, is clearly night and day better than Ode Osbourne. Osbourne has some sort of explosivity to him, like he is kind of fast and quick, and he can put people out, but he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Like, lost to Javel Filho by submission, lost to Asu Amabayev by submission, who was grappling, lost to Tyson Nam by KO. He went for like a jump knee and got KO'd midair by Tyson Nam, who was an old man making his return to the UFC at that time. And now that I'm looking at Ronaldo Rodriguez and going through his fights, I kind of realized that I might think he's somebody else because he has this Dennis Bondar win, and I thought it was the guy who pretty much almost murdered Dennis Bondar. So I think I'm mixing up my Rodriguez's here or my names, but I do remember Rodriguez fighting Dennis Bondar, and he had a good gas tank. He was stuffing takedowns, getting on top of Dennis Bondar as well. And Bondar is a pretty aggressive grappler. Like, he is pretty good. And he went out there and submitted him, which I think is a good submission. I think that was when Bondar gassed himself out by going for so many takedowns. That was the elevation as well. So I think Rodriguez having good cardio elevation, having power in his hands, showing patient striking and powerful striking. I think he can find a way to KO Ode Osbourne, who can be chinned at flyweight. And overall, like, yeah, he's explosive, but he can be out grappled as well. So if things do get iffy for Rodriguez on the feet, he can just go to the grappling. That has been Ode Osbourne's kryptonite so far. Like, people who do grapple him, typically they do win. So I think Ronaldo Rodriguez has more options, whether it's the ground or on the feet, whichever one he wants to go to. I think he will find a way to go out there and probably submit Ode Osbourne. I think that's his path of least resistance, is just to go for takedowns. And I think he has good jiu-jitsu as well. So take him by submission, probably round 1. Ode Osbourne just doesn't really impress me whatsoever. Probably should be cut from the UFC. If he does lose this, I think he will be cut from the UFC. No point in keeping him around. But I am taking Ronaldo Rodriguez by submission in the first round. Moving on to Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Ribovic. Now, I actually really do like Esteban Ribovic, or Ribovic, however you say his name. I just think that this matchup versus Daniel Zellhuber is kind of a bad one for him. Daniel Zellhuber is, again, a guy who I think doesn't use his reach advantage good enough, but he does have that reach advantage. This is at lightweight, and he's 6'1 with 77 inches of reach compared to a 5'10 Esteban Ribovic with 69 inches of reach. That is an astounding difference. And I do think if Zellhuber can find a way to use his reach effectively, it's going to be very hard for Ribovic. Ribovic uses a lot of hooks on the inside, which can be a way to win this fight versus Zellhuber. He does carry power. He can grapple as well. I have seen him grapple people on the regional scene, and that could be a way of victory for Esteban Ribovic. But I just really don't know how he's going to be able to effectively get on the inside and attack Daniel Zellhuber, who has 8 inches of reach on him. Like, it's going to be very, very tough for Ribovic to really get in there and try to find a way to beat Zellhuber, who, again, is nothing too crazy on the feet, but still is good enough to survive anything that happens to him. Like, his only loss is to Trey Ogden, and Trey Ogden's very, very tricky, tapping low kicks. He's very, I would say, orthodox, I guess, but he's just a very tricky striker on the feet, and that can give a lot of young prospects issues. And when I compare that style of Trey Ogden versus Ribovic, I think there are very, very different styles. I don't see Ribovic going out there on the back foot, just tapping low kicks and trying to be tricky and use some craftiness to him to beat Zellhuber. I see him going in there and trying to get a KO or trying to find his way on the inside and land good shots versus Zellhuber, which could be to his detriment. I don't know. I don't really see Zellhuber KOing Ribovic. I think he goes out there and just kind of minorly outpoints him throughout 3 rounds. It's kind of his style. It's what he's been doing for his past, I believe, 3 fights. Actually, got an anaconda choke against Christos Giagos, which Giagos is not that good, but beat Francisco Prado by, again, using his reach, outpointing Prado as the fight went on. Prado has, I would say, a somewhat similar style to Ribovic, kind of a guy who uses a lot of hooks, tries to find his way on the inside, and I just don't think it's going to be too successful for Ribovic in this one. I'm taking Daniel Zellhuber by decision. But moving on to the feature fight between Brian Ortega and Diego Lopes. This one I have made a whole prediction video about, and I kind of had the same take when it comes to this fight. When it comes to Brian Ortega, I don't really find him to be too amazing. Yes, he did beat Yair Rodriguez, who turns out has 0 grappling defense whatsoever. And Diego Lopes, I believe, has some grappling defense, or he does have some grappling defense. He mainly uses his jiu-jitsu as a way to get up or find a way to get a submission or threaten something. Like, both of these guys have really good jiu-jitsu. People forget that Ortega also does have really, really good jiu-jitsu. Like, I believe he came from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. Like, that's his whole base. Like, Ortega, his main thing is jiu-jitsu. So I don't really see Diego Lopes going out there and finding a way to submit Brian Ortega. It would be crazy if he does, in my opinion. Now, on the feet, I do believe that Lopes is better than Ortega, but I don't see him being able to KO Ortega because Ortega took some of the cleanest 1-2s I've ever seen from Yair Rodriguez in their first fight. He was getting his head completely spun around and his chin was still there when he fought Max Holloway, when he fought Volk, never got hurt, just took the shots on the chin. I just think Ortega's chin is something a little bit different here. And when I look at Volk and I look at Max Holloway, they do have one thing in common, is that their cardio is very, very good and they can just put on an output of strikes throughout the entire fight. And I don't think Lopes can do that. And I like Lopes, and I do think he's better on the feet, but I am worried for what if he can't find a way to finish Ortega? What if he can't submit him? What if he can't TKO him? What's there for him? And we just saw in his last fight versus Ige, he was on full camp, by the way. Ige was on like 4 hours notice, one of the craziest fill-ins for a fight ever. And Ige had him in the 3rd round. Lopes was gassed out. And Ige, if he just stood up Lopes, probably would have finished him. So we know that full camp Lopes might not have the best gas tank. And I'm really worried for Lopes in this one, man. I'm kind of leaning towards picking Ortega for this, honestly. Like, I really do think that Ortega is one of the worst matchups for Lopes right now at featherweight. So I think what I'm going to do is the good old, if I'm right, then I get my pick right. But if I'm wrong, then I'm happy that Lopes wins. Because I want Lopes to win here. I root for him. I want him to go far at featherweight. And Ortega, doesn't really do it for me. The whole Eagle speech, whatever, it's cringe. It is what it is. So I think I'm going to pick Ortega. I'm going to pick him by decision. I think he'll find a way to just neutralize the game of Diego Lopes. And so I'm basically doing this as a way to cope. So if Ortega wins, then I'm upset, but I get my pick right. But if Lopes wins, I get my pick wrong, but I'm happy that Lopes won. So this plan pretty much makes it foolproof that I'll be happy at the end of the day because I get my pick right or Lopes wins, which is kind of what I want. But again, I'm taking Ortega to go over it again. I think he'll neutralize the jiu-jitsu of Diego Lopes. I think on the feet, Lopes is better, but I think he will eventually gas in that second, third round, and we'll see Ortega kind of have his own success, maybe in the grappling, maybe in the boxing. We'll see. Ortega, again, does worry me, but maybe he gets an injury because it seems like Ortega just finds a way to get injuries now before the fight or during the fight, like when he fought Yair. Actually, when he fought Yair the first time, he got submitted, let's be real here. But in the second fight, during the announcements, he was jumping up and down and almost broke his ankle. So maybe Ortega gets a fluke injury in the middle of this fight. We'll see, but I'm taking Ortega. I just think it's a really bad matchup for Lopes. Lopes still can win, though, but I'm picking Ortega. But moving on to the co-main event for the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship, Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. I think it's now a little bit too late for Shevchenko. She's now 36 years old, and Alexa Grasso, I believe, has dropped her, and I think every single one of their fights, the two fights that they had, I think Grasso has dropped her, or at least one of them. And I really do think that that second fight told us a lot about who is better between Grasso and Shevchenko. I think Grasso won that fight. Shevchenko did well. It's going to be a close fight. Again, like they both, this is the third time we're seeing it. Shevchenko, again, has the history, blah, blah, blah. Good kickboxer, good striker. Grasso, really good boxing. And the boxing really affects Shevchenko. Shevchenko doesn't seem like she is fast enough to deal with Grasso's boxing. And that leaves her to be tagged quite consistently. And I think this time, honestly, I think we're going to see a TKO. The UFC, they're kind of behind Grasso, I think, in this one. This is the third time they've seen it. Shevchenko is 36, on her way out of the door. She'll be a GOAT, legend of the sport. Grasso, they want to get into that Mexican market. They want to get into that Latin market, Latino market. I think they really want Grasso to win this one. And I think if at any point Shevchenko gets knocked down, we might see an early stoppage. And even if that's not the case, I think Grasso overall has just been improving as she's been fighting as champion. I think in the past two Shevchenko fights, I think she's improved in each and every single one. I think her grappling has improved. I think her boxing has gotten better. I think she can find Shevchenko's chin. And when it comes to Shevchenko, I feel like she's gotten a bit slower. I feel like her offensive takedowns have not been as effective as they once were. When she fought, I guess, lesser competition than Grasso, they were always her go-to. She could out-grapple anybody at women's flyweight, but when it comes to Grasso, it's a bit iffy for her. It's a struggle for her. So I am taking Grasso to win this one, and I think she'll actually put a stamp on it. And I think she'll go out there, and I think she'll either KO round 3, maybe submission round 3. But I think at some point she might knock down Shevchenko, and whether she goes for the submission or goes for ground and pound, I think she finds a way to finish Shevchenko and really put a stamp on it and tell everybody that she is the true flyweight champion, that Shevchenko is not better than her. But moving on to our final fight, the grand finale, the main event between Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili for that bantamweight championship. I have a whole video on this, so go on my channel, check out the whole in-depth, detailed breakdown of that fight. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'll give you the cliff notes of what I said before, but I'm taking Sean O'Malley by second round TKO, KO, TKO. My whole take here was that Merab is good and he can get takedowns and he can grind on O'Malley, but he is open on the feet. And even when he does get takedowns, he never really ever establishes control time. Typically guys who fight Merab, they can pop right back up and then prepare for the next takedown. It's just that Merab has insane cardio and he can go for takedown after takedown after takedown after takedown after takedown and just keep going for as long as the fight lasts. That's exactly what Merab did to Petr Yan. But what I think makes O'Malley different than Petr Yan is that O'Malley is more of a shot selector, right? Now, Petr Yan can shot select, obviously, but it takes him a while to get into the fight. Like he has to make really good reads, and he's just overall slow getting into a fight. And so when Merab fought him, he never really could ever get into the fight because he was so worried about stuffing takedowns the entire time. O'Malley has a game plan. He typically sticks to it. He finds that shot mid-fight if he needs to adjust anything. We saw it against Aljo, found that pull counter. It was beautiful. And I'm pretty sure he knows that Merab is really open to a left hook at any moment in this fight. And I think he will be looking for it on the feet at any point that they are on the feet. And so I am predicting O'Malley will find that KO in that second round. He will find that left hook or left straight KO down the pipe against Merab. I am worried for O'Malley, though. He still can very much lose this. Again, I said in my prediction video that when it comes to O'Malley just purely striking, he has elite cardio. When he fought Chris Moutinho, that fight was solely on the feet. He had insane cardio. When he fought Chito Vera, he fought at his own pace, had good cardio. But when he fought Petr Yan and grappling got involved, he gassed out a little bit. And this could be the same thing with Merab. I think once this fight gets into the third, fourth, fifth round, and if O'Malley hasn't finished Merab by then I can probably trust Merab to get this one done. Just can he survive 2 rounds of O'Malley? And if he can, I think Merab wins. But if he doesn't, then obviously he loses. So I'm taking O'Malley by second round TKO. And that will conclude our full card prediction video. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, bell icon for notifications. I'll see y'all later. Peace.